Ah, music to my ears, or is it terrible PTSD? Sauce Gardner says he wants to be a lifetime Jet. I want to take a look at what the contract could look like and how feasible it is for him to stay in New York.
J-E-T-S, Jets, Jets, Jets!
All right, before we hop in the video, I just want to say thank you to Cuts Clothing. They reached out, wanted to sponsor the channel. They said, we're going to send you a shirt, some joggers, and give you a 20% off promo code for your audience. I said, okay, I want to try this out. I'm going back to work and I got to get some new clothing. They're like, this is perfect. It's not just like athletic wear. This can be worn to work. And I'm like super comfortable in it. I got the joggers, got the t-shirt. This stuff is like super breathable, 4-way stretch. So those uncomfy spots or angles that you got to get into your daily stuff, this stuff's going to move with you super well, going to breathe really nicely too. So if you guys want to head over, cutsclothing.com, 20% off promo code Jets Talk. Your entire order, it's not just one item. So if you get like 2, 3, a zillion things, bam, 20% off. So promo code in the description down below. Head over there. Thank you for supporting the channel. All right, let's chop it up. Sauce Gardner says, I want to be a New York Jet for the rest of my career. That warms my heart as someone that pounded the table for the Jets to take him at number 4 when that was not necessarily the popular decision to make. I would love to see Sauce Gardner end up being a lifetime Jet, someone that you could be proud of, both from a character standpoint and from just an absolute stud playmaking perspective. And the marketability is just, it's so good. It's so good. But I want to get into it. I want to take a look at what the contract could look like, some of the aspects that go into it, and then maybe the little bit of a PTSD side of things towards the end of this video. But let's hop into the good stuff first. So first and foremost, what could a deal for Sauce Gardner look like? Here are the contracts for the top cornerbacks as it stands right now. The column that I have highlighted is the average annual salary. That's the number that everyone kind of tends to pay attention to. Obviously, 𝐀𝐟𝐟𝐢𝐥 with the $21 million a year is the bar to kind of meet. And if Sauce Gardner is getting a contract, I think everyone is probably on board with understanding Sauce is going to get the top level cornerback contract. He has been an all-pro for 2 years in a row, just an absolute stud. And look, I think this is going to be one of the easiest contracts that you could possibly work out. You say, okay, who's the highest paid guy? Give Sauce more. Who's getting the most guaranteed money? Give Sauce more. Like, that's just sort of how my mindset operates. And when I'm looking at this, that you got to remember that 21, 20, 20, 19.5, 19.4, $19.4 million annual average salary that you see for those top guys there, there's a little bit of like not quite involved in some of these numbers and metrics with the NFL contracts, because contracts in other sports are fully guaranteed. Contracts in the NFL are not fully guaranteed. So you could see a situation where, you know, Jalen Ramsey's getting $20 million a year, but his contract may get to a point where the cap hit is so high at a certain point, they're going to cut him. And even though he's not on the team and there's this big inflated number that you see in his annual average salary, he's not actually going to see all of that money. So I think there's a little bit of like shock and awe that happens with some of these things. But what could a contract look like for Sauce Gardner? I think it's very realistic that he winds up getting. Now, I guess it depends on when this happens. Does it happen immediately after this year? You can renegotiate after 3 years on your rookie contract. And given the level of play that he's had, I think it would be wise to lock him up now, because these contracts are only going to escalate as the salary cap continues to grow and continues to get higher and higher. So signing him early is going to be key, because you already have a lower 4th year and then you have his 5th year option. So if you're going to pay him the highest contract you possibly can, being able to spread out that cap hit among some of the lower years while also maybe adding some void years at the back end of the contract is going to make it a lot easier to kind of pay people across the board at different positions. We got a bunch of people coming up. We got Breece, we got Garrett, we got JJ, obviously Sauce, to go along with a bunch of other players that are going to be leaving this offseason that you're going to have to worry about. You know, guys like DJ Reed, Brandon Eccles, Michael Carter II. Those guys are on the final year of their contract. So clearly the secondary is going to be some kind of need as it is moving forward. But as far as Sauce, look, it depends on how much he wants. Like, does he want multiple years or does he want a shorter term contract at a high number? Now, my first video of this channel that I made was why the New York Jets should get Kirk Cousins. We had so much cap space at the time. I was like, hey, let's front load the deal like crazy and then, have it play out over the course of the next few years, and he's going to be here, and it's not going to be too bad from a cap perspective. He winds up taking like a 3-year fully guaranteed contract. I didn't see that coming. I was thinking multiple years, higher guarantee. That's where you would want to go. With Sauce, I think he's, 24 years old? He is not, like, he doesn't need to take a massive, massive contract, but does he want to? Maybe he wants the long-term financial security because maybe it's a 5-year extension onto the end of his rookie contract. Maybe it's a restructure of the current contract that pays him maybe a little bit higher premium now for the caliber of player he is right now. It all sorts of depends. And then also what happens this year. Do the Jets wind up going to the Super Bowl and doing well? Or does everything just implode and the whole regime is canned and everything winds up going sideways? Because now things start to happen where, this starts to feel very Jamal Adams-esque, where everyone loved Jamal. Granted, Jamal didn't play a premium position and was a diva and a headache. Sauce very much plays a premium position and is an all-pro at his position, like the best in the league. So I don't want to compare those two necessarily, but you could see a situation where, if the regime gets canned and, is everyone gone and they try to trade people for assets? I hope that's not the case. Obviously, there's a ton of marketability for Sauce too. Like, one thing to take a look at, obviously, it's the financial side of things from the salary cap perspective. It is the financial side of things from how much he could be marketable for the team. How much money is Woody Johnson going to make on jersey sales, on marketing deals, and all that sort of stuff with Sauce on the team. The other side of it is, you have to pay players a ton of money. And when you do that, how does their mentality change? Do you have a guy that's going to party a lot? Do you have someone like Muhammad Wilkerson who's going to absolutely ball out and then get paid and then just stop? Now, I don't see Sauce as someone who's just going to up and stop. The guy hasn't had a lick of alcohol, hasn't had any, hasn't done any drugs, anything like that. Like, he is the model perfect citizen. If you could say, this is the embodiment of what it means to be a New York Jet, this is what it is. It's Sauce Gardner. And that's the whole reason why I thought we needed to take him at the number 4 pick. And I would love to bring him back for a long-term deal here. So as far as the numbers go, I'm not too concerned from whatever it's going to cost. I made a video at one point because I don't know hip lingo, and Sauce said I'm doing dirty or something like that. And I thought he was saying I want 30, whatever. I thought he was talking about $30 million a year. Now, I think this contract could very much look like a 5-year, 125 guaranteed. Like, I could see it being $25 million a year or close to $30 million a year, depending on when this contract actually kicks in and how things kind of escalate. It's definitely going to be interesting, and how the salary cap increases. We saw the largest jump up in salary cap space from last year to this year. So it could be that we're going to see these as the streaming platforms continue to get games, and maybe they add an extra game into the NFL season. We've heard maybe an 18th game coming out. You could see the salary cap skyrocket, and these numbers could drastically change. Now, is he worth that much money? And I would say as a zone corner, you probably get a little bit of like, he's only playing one half the field. We saw it with Nnamdi Asomugha and some other guys. Like, hey, if Sauce isn't going to travel, they're just going to play towards cornerback too, and it won't even matter how highly paid your top cornerback is. But this year we did hear something different from Sauce. He was on a podcast and he was talking about how he is going to travel a little bit more frequently. And for the wide receivers that the Jets are going to be facing this year, Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle twice, George Pickens, Michael Pittman, Brandon Ayuk, Deebo Samuel, Keon Coleman twice, Puka Nacua, Cooper Kupp, Stefon Diggs, DK Metcalf, Justin Jefferson, Cortland Sutton, DeAndre Hopkins, and Calvin Ridley, and Marvin Harrison Jr. That is a gauntlet of stud wide receivers, or at least like number 1 wide receivers that you're going to be going up against. And Sauce, if he can have a similar caliber season to what he did the last 2 years, let alone like if you've got a pass rush that can take advantage of a lead that the New York Jets have because we have Aaron Rodgers and because we're controlling the clock with Breece Hall and the running game and all that. Now you have the opportunity for the other team that has to go pass the ball. They're going to get under pressure with the pass rush, and they're going to be throwing balls that are going to be under pressure, which means they're more interceptable. And that's kind of what you saw early on 2 years ago when the Jets had more turnovers. It was because we had those leads early and we were able to protect the lead, and teams had to press to try and beat the New York Jets, and Sauce was getting an interception. And, some of the other guys on the team, obviously Whitehead had 3 interceptions last year, but when you press a team that needs to score points, then you get the opportunity for turnovers. And I think that's where the Jets are headed this year. I think Sauce is going to have an absolutely monster season. You got to think if he's following number 1 wide receivers around and it's crunch time for the other team, he's going to be in a position to try and take advantage of a potentially errant thrown ball at some point. So I really, really like this. I think if I were Sauce, I would, you just have to think, right? Like, do you want the shorter term deal, or do you want a contract that is going to be actually keep you here long term? We heard Jamal Adams say, I want to be a lifetime Jet. His ass gets sent out for 2 first-round picks. Now, I'm not saying I want that to happen, but I feel like every player that wants to be a lifetime player on their team is going to say it just before the whole contract stuff starts coming out. Now, I do believe Sauce wants it. I think he likes the limelight. I think he likes being here. It seems like he really enjoys the fans, the team, everyone on this roster is just, it's super fun to watch. I think where you start to get concerned is where does the money go during the Super Bowl window and how much is pushed into the future? Because the 2026 year, there's going to be a lot of dead cap hit for this team, especially if Aaron Rodgers retires after, let's say, 2025, then you're dealing with a massive dead cap hit. And I don't think the Jets are going to bring back DJ Reed. I think they're probably going to let him walk in preemptiveness to kind of like understand that you're going to have to start paying some of these young guys. You got Breece, you got Garrett, you got Sauce, you got JJ, guys you want to keep in the building. These are cornerstone players for this Jets team. We haven't had studs like this in a very, very long time. So I would be really disappointed if anything wound up happening to any of these players. I think they should be locked up for a long-term deal. Give them the financial security, give them the guaranteed money. You know what you're going to get out of them. They've gone through the worst seasons with Zach Wilson as quarterback. And I've said it before, particularly with Garrett Wilson. The fifth-year options, there's 4 of them. There's the baseline, the playing time, 1 Pro Bowl, and 2 Pro Bowls. So the 4 different ones. You're telling me Garrett Wilson, the difference from a 2 Pro Bowl season to a no Pro Bowl season is like $7 million. So for me, I feel like these players are going to be looking at what happens this year, how they're utilized, how their fifth-year options could come into play, and what they could kind of leverage. Because obviously you want to sign them to a contract anyway, so that hopefully they don't see that fifth-year option regardless. But you want to be able to at least have that kind of footing as a player to have some type of leverage. So overall, I very much want Sauce to be here long-term. Give him the bag. If it's 5 years, $25 million a year, fine. No questions asked whatsoever. Give him $75 million guaranteed. I think the top one was $100 million guaranteed, or $71 million guaranteed. One thing I do want to bring up too, when you start looking at some of these cornerback contracts from around the league and the highest paid guys, the cap hits aren't too bad early on in the contracts. Marlon Humphrey, his first few years of cap hit, $7.7 million, $8.4 million, $10.2 million, $12.4 million. And then in 2024, started hitting 22.8, then it's 25, and then 22. So then it goes up a little bit from there. 𝐀𝐟𝐼𝐥𝐢𝐴 Alexander, $7 million, $10 million. Then it goes up to 23, then it's 25, 27, and starts getting a little bit tougher at that point. Denzel Ward, $5 million, $12 million, $12 million, $24 million. Then it goes up to 30, 27, and then you hope you might restructure. Jalen Ramsey, $2.9 million, $7.9 million, $26 million is his deal for next year. So whether or not he's on that roster is going to be up to be seen if they extend him. So you can get Sauce under a contract where the cap hits are not so critical. It's just a matter of how you're going to structure it based on your Super Bowl window and what dead cap hit you're going to have to incur whenever Rodgers does ultimately retire. Now, let's hope for the best possible season. I want to see these guys make as much money as possible because they have earned as much money as possible. That's what I want to see. Boys and girls, let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below. Do you want Sauce, Garrett, Breece, JJ to be lifetime Jets? Do you think one of them may not be here in the future? What would you do? Let me know in the comment section down below. And as always, go Jets.
Jets!